If you thought Grand Theft Auto 5 was a masterpiece, well, it's time we step into the time machine to the West. This is how it's done.
The many things we learn, the building of a shrine, only just to burn. That's the way.
Red Dead Redemption 2 is the 2018 game developed by Rockstar Games, the makers of the Grand Theft Auto franchise, and is, funnily enough, a prequel to the first Red Dead game, and not a sequel, even though it's titled Red Dead Redemption 2, so that will confuse the heck out of Red Dead fans. Oh well, you'll know it's a prequel by the ending of the game. So Red Dead Redemption 2 tells the story taking place in 1899, where the Wild West era is coming to an end, and this game is simply the first Red Dead, the cowboy version of Grand Theft Auto, where this gang with Arthur Morgan as the playable protagonist, just doing everything they can to stay alive in a developing world. And it turns out that Arthur's story sets up John Marston's story in the first game. Now, the first Red Dead is one of Rockstar Games' most highly acclaimed video games when it was released in 2010, though I never played it at the time. I didn't play it until, January this year, after I played Red Dead 2. But after playing the first Red Dead, I think it's the most overrated of the Rockstar games. Please don't hurt me. Hold your horses. I'm not saying the first Red Dead is bad, far from it. It's a perfectly serviceable video game, but to me it's less replayable than Rockstar's other games. While it perfectly captures the tone of the West, and Bonnie would be the best character in the first Red Dead game, though other than that, the plot could have been more emotionally engaging for me, and John Marston in the first game, I thought was a flat protagonist, and also some of the gameplay had its issues, like the mobility of the horse, but as for my thoughts on Red Dead Redemption 2, released 8 years after its predecessor, this was the most anticipated game of 2018, and it's sold over 25 million copies, which goes to show how long the Red Dead fandom have been waiting for this game, and when I first played it last year, when it was released around my birthday time, Red Dead 2 kicks the shit out of the first Red Dead. Now, this is to me a nearly fucking perfect video game, and one of my favourite video games of all time, period. This game entirely solved all of the flaws I had with the first Red Dead. Rockstar Games do have an actor for improving their sequel games over the original, as the Grand Theft Auto games did improve as they went along, and this is the case for the Red Dead franchise. So if Red Dead 3 is tops this, I will be applauding Rockstar Games like Maz. The one thing that Red Dead 2 got right, and the first Red Dead got wrong, was its protagonist. Arthur Morgan, for me personally, leagues more compelling as our hero than John Marston ever was. Arthur is the one of the members of the gang with honor, and he remains noble, and he consistently puts the gang before himself, no matter what. So Arthur has one of the saddest and most downright. And Arthur has one of the saddest and most downright tragic storylines in a video game, where he, in the middle of the game, is sadly diagnosed with tuberculosis, and at that time there was no cure or vaccination for tuberculosis. So if you had tuberculosis in those days, sadly you were a goner. But Arthur, he does fight it, and he keeps he stays strong until the end, and when he's rising back to the gang in his final level to make things rise, and you hear this epic music playing with this song playing in the background, Arthur is rising literally towards his destiny. And you can get one or two endings with Arthur, so there is some decision making involved in the gameplay. You're not forced to follow a particular storyline. It's up to you where the story can go, and the endings that you can get are Arthur dying peacefully by the sunset, or Micah shooting Arthur at night after the final battle, and or you can get an ending where Arthur just picks to be a coward and greedy and just run off, but he still dies. So he can either die nobly or die without redemption. So yeah, Arthur is sadly killed off inevitably in the ending of his story. Damn, a Rockstar game sure has an obsession with killing off their protagonists. But thankfully, the game doesn't end there. After that, you get an epilogue where you play as John Marston, and this game did make me care about John Marston far more, thankfully, as we get to see more of John with his wife Abigail and his son. This was before he met Bonnie. Thankfully, as John, you do get to avenge Arthur and make things right. So you're like, at least Arthur's death wasn't in vain. And my favourite character in this game personally would be Sadie Adler. Yeah, Sadie herself. She has to be the awesomest and single most badass character I have ever seen in a video game. Her character is literal perfection. And you want things to go right and end well for her also, as her husband in the opening level of the game is murdered by the O'Driscolls, and her house is literally burnt down to the ground. So she goes on a revenge journey to just take down the O'Driscolls for what they did to her, and she does consistently stay with Arthur and John Marston, and without her, Arthur and John. And on the battlefield, Sadie is even more badass than any of the men. Sadie Adler is the queen of the West, as is Abigail, John's wife, and we get to see the complexity of Abigail and John's relationship. But it can be on and off, but Abigail, she is she consistently stands up for herself, and she even requests her to come on the mission with Arthur and Sadie to break John out of the prison. That's how bold she is, and Arthur, Sadie, Abigail and John would be the four primary protagonists of the game, and the few members of the gang with any honour, but the others are just supporting supporting characters in the gang, and we do lose some of them, sadly. Not all of them make it to the end. Jose's death is especially dark, and Dutch, the leader of the gang, is the one who consistently fucks up and gets the gang into all of these messes. He's constantly coming up with different plans for the gang, but they constantly backfire, and it doesn't help that Dutch is also being manipulated to turn to the dark side by the most unlikable gang member, Micah, who is also the main antagonist of this game. He's the final boss battle for both Arthur and John. Micah is a dig. And he's the one that takes Arthur's life in the finale of Arthur's story, so it feels good as John Marston to get Micah back and finally defeat Micah in the very final level of the game. Both the first and final levels of the game take place in the snowy mountains, which feels fitting. And Red Dead Redemption 2 is a visual masterpiece of a game. The visuals of this game put the visuals of the first Red Dead to freaking shame. The western landscapes and environments, they feel alive. They don't feel like you don't feel like you're in a pixelated video game ever. Even 10 years from now, this game won't be out of date. Even the horses in this game, flawlessly improve the mobility of the horse. It's far easier to ride your horse in this game. You also get to legitimately bond with your horse in this game and care for your horse. So, like, you get to pat your horse, feed your horse, name your horse, and pick your horse. So it's not like in the Grand Theft Auto games where you could easily just crash a car when you're traveling to your destination. No, when you're riding on your horse, you care about your horse. You don't want your horse to get injured because if your horse if you get your horse killed unintentionally in this game, it can be such a blow to you. Some of the moments when you're riding your horse across the western country in this game feel freaking epic. They give me Spirit Stallion at the Cimarron vibes, one of my favourite and most underrated DreamWorks animated classics. And we get to see all of the Native American wildlife at that time. We get to come across bears, wolves, and bison, and even in the swamp levels, it's full of alligators. But the alligators can be a pain in the arse. So when you're tippy-toeing through the swamp, you needed to make sure you don't come across or step on an alligator. But this game has one of the best variety of environments. So we get to see the forests and mountains, the city, the swamp, and even this tropical island which Arthur and Dutch gets stranded on temporarily. This would also be one of the longest games I have ever played in my entire life. It will take an entire month to complete gameplay wise. A longer game is always a positive for me, and the gameplay has a variety to it also. Shootouts and fights are a regular thing in this game, especially when you're battling the O'Driscolls and other rival gangs and Micah. But there's also hunting missions. There's heist missions, and there's also delivery missions. And if you press the R button, you get this wheel of items where you could get to pick any helpful item for your level. Like if you needed to heal yourself, you could grab a bottle and drink from it to boost your health bar. You can either purchase these items at a store or you can loot other characters for them. Does Red Dead 2 have its nitpicks? Sure. I do wish there was a director's mod in this game. That's why I personally favoured Grand Theft Auto 5 just slightly over this game, as in Grand Theft Auto 5 there is a director's mod and you can play as any character you want, whereas in Red Dead 2 you're just stuck with Arthur and John as your playable characters. I would have loved a director's mod where you play as Sadie, personally. But other than that, I wouldn't change a thing about this true masterpiece. Outside to my buzzer, Stephen Mead, also known as iQuadra 5, as without him I never would have played this game. And also extremely special shout outs to my mama for guessing me this game for Christmas. And it's one of Rockstar's finest games yet. Would it be my favourite game of 2018? I'd still say Detroit Become Human is the best game of 2018, but Red Dead Redemption 2 is still a close second. I give Red Dead Redemption 2 5 stars out of 5. Best game ever. Who knows what Rockstar games have planned for their future? Maybe a Red Dead 3 or Bully 2. Now that would be awesome. Well, I love you guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. What do you think of Red Dead Redemption 2, and which do you like better, Red Dead 1 or 2? Please comment and let me know. Please like this video and subscribe. Please follow on Twitter and on Instagram, and I'll see you next time when I share my thoughts on the His Dark Materials TV show trailer. And remember, movies are us. Bye guys.